Maximum 70 points available that Sebastian
70?
Vettel did get.
70 points.
So you've got to up your game.
No offence, but you should focus on driving.
Okay. Because of what Lando said in that clip, many Formula 1 fans actually turned on Lando. And if you ask, I'd say a decent chunk of F1 fans, they would actually have Max win this championship, making it 4, instead of Lando getting his first championship. Now, one of those people that I think have turned on Lando Norris has got to be Zach Brown, because McLaren are absolutely not serious about winning this championship. Let's just say since round 6, round 7, Miami, Imola, there was some sort of changing of the guard as far as who is the fastest, McLaren versus Red Bull. Since then, Max has outclassed him in Canada. He bottled the start in Spain. He and Max both raced badly in Austria, and I won't have it any other way. It was both him and Max's fault that incident came about. He bottled the strategy in Silverstone, and he didn't just bottle the strategy. I don't think it's made up enough of how badly Lando fumbled that. Piastri, who was basically a pit stop behind, by the end of the race was on the back of Lando. He stupidly, and I really do mean this, he stupidly let Piastri through in Hungary, which, some people saying, well, it's good for team spirit. And on the radio, McLaren was like, look, you're going to need Piastri to win the championship, and this is not how you treat him. Well, we're going to get to that later. We're going to get to how Piastri paid him back later. But after that, he bottled another starting spot. He wasn't even starting on pole then. He just wanted to bottle it for fun. Funny enough, the person that passed him when he bottled his start was in fact George Russell, who went on track at least, to win the race. So there's some food for thought for you. He then decided to cap it all off by bottling another start. But, this time he had a rocket ship on his hands. And I think it's fair to say that the McLaren is so far ahead, or rather the Red Bull has dropped back enough. The gap between first and second has grown, even though as hasn't actually grown. It's just that Red Bull don't actually have consistently the second best car. I would say Red Bull will have about the third best car right now. They don't really, have much of an answer when other cars come to attack them. So when I say them, I mean Max. Maybe fourth, depending on how good Ferrari is on the weekend. And speaking of Ferrari, Piastri, after Lando Norris graciously, and I do mean graciously, gave him the win, he decided to pay him back by doing his best K-Mag impression.
Jamen, han prøver på yderbanen.
Once again, most unsportive driver of the grid.
Suck my balls, man.
Yeah, you're really good, man. Keep going.
Ja, det var ikke så pænt.
Nearly spinning out Lando and letting past Charles, who would ultimately, again, win the race. I swear you can't write this. I'm sure Lando Norris was inside of his changing room or room or whatever that hotel thing they have. I'm sure he was there at the end of the race thinking, this Piastri guy. I'm sure at the end of Monza, when Lando Norris went back to his room at the end of the day, he really thought to himself, why did I give Piastri the win? There was literally nothing to gain, because now Piastri, technically speaking, has taken 14 points from Lando Norris, 7 in Hungary, which I don't care what anyone says. I don't care what anyone says about, oh, it was Piastri's thing to win. No, he got undercutted. That's a very, very normal racing thing to happen. Piastri getting given the win by Lando Norris, because that's what happened. He gave him the win. He slowed down by 5 seconds to give him the win. Piastri being gifted the win after not being able to close within 5 seconds of Lando in Hungary, only to be repaid back by nearly spinning him out on the first lap, letting the man that would ultimately win the race get past him and not feeling any sort of remorse. I tell you what, McLaren are going to win the Constructors. We can all agree that. They're going to win the Constructors. But as far as the Drivers' Championship is concerned, McLaren do not care at all. They don't care at all. If I was Zach Brown, I would go, look, Red Bull are clearly struggling. That's the only reason they're able to even attempt to claw back something like a 50-point deficit, is because Red Bull are struggling a lot. Now, clearly they're going to win the constructors because they have both cars there consistently. The thing is about the driver. That's where everyone's bets are, 50-50. Is he going to make it? Is he not? But you know what? It wouldn't be so 50-50 if McLaren would sacrifice Piastri. Because although I just pointed out many mistakes that Lando Norris makes, all champions make mistakes. It's up to the team to help them, and it's up to the team to sacrifice the second driver in order to aid whoever it is has the absolute best chance of winning that championship, especially when there isn't much races to waste. Like the season is coming in very quickly. Before you know it, we're going to be in Qatar. Before you know it, we're going to be in Abu Dhabi. I don't think Red Bull are going to have a major upgrade package that will fix their missteps or their lack of performance. I think they really are going to try and ride out the rest of the season. But you don't know for sure. All Red Bull really needs is a couple more wins by Max, and this championship is a lot farther away than you realize. All it takes is one DNF by Norris, and this championship is miles off. Ever since Piastri came into the sport, he's been worth double, maybe even triple the hype he's had so far. Obviously, he's had the fiasco with Alpine, and I'm not going to be racing for Alpine next year. No, it's kind of funny. But he's young, he's quick, and he's, as far as I'm concerned, with McLaren for a long, long time. Now, because Piastri is, dare I say it, one season away from being faster than Lando, McLaren are investing heavy into them. Even though, upon a little bit of investigation, Piastri is 1 year younger than Lando. Now, obviously, it's not like a Kimi Antonelli George situation in which Kimi is 18, George is like 26, 27. And so, although they're both young drivers, really and truly, they're kind of different. They're not really in the same boat. Piastri and Norris are literally in the same boat. They're interchangeable. Speed-wise, I think Lando is slightly quicker and a lot more consistent. Piastri's been hit with a lot of bad luck this season, a lot of times where he probably could have been a bit better, but his actual pace is very good. But as far as the drivers are concerned, Lando has been there longer. He is the faster driver. He's only a year older, and you never know when drivers could start to fall off. Fernando Alonso in his 40s is, let's be real here. He's quicker than Sebastian Vettel when Sebastian was like 35, but when he was just about to retire. So you never know when a driver could fall off. So Lando could very well, even though he's 1 year older, go on for way longer than Piastri. You don't know. So it really does confuse me as to why McLaren have just decided to jump ship to Piastri. I've heard rumors, and these are only rumors, I have nothing to substantiate some of these claims, that Mark Webber, who is the manager of Piastri, has put in his contract there is no such thing as a team orders to effectively put Piastri into a second driver position. Now, obviously, there may be a reason or two that Mark Webber might have done that.
Line is that I was racing, I was faster, I passed it, I won.
There may be a reason or two. You never know. But still, not telling Piastri to sit back at Monza, or in Hungary, I don't know. There comes a point where if there is, let's say there's £1 million fine on this type of thing where, if you give him team orders like this, you have to pay Piastri $1 million. Fine, pay the guy $1 million. This is the championship we're looking at. This isn't about contracts anymore. Void the damn contract. Break the contract, suffer the consequences. As long as Piastri's not leaving at the end of the season, it's fine. If Piastri was in a different situation, he would want the team to do the exact same for him. And dare I say it, I think they would do the exact same thing for him. But you really cannot expect me to take McLaren seriously when at this late stage in the season, they're still hesitating over team orders. I get on the first race. I get, a third of the way through the season. But we're basically near the closing stages of the season. Before you know it, we're going to be in October-ish. And then it's like, okay, the championship is you know, depending on how well Max does, the championship is sealed. And they are really leaving this in Red Bull's hands right now. But in a world in which Red Bull are still the second quickest car, I am 100% sure that they are not going to win this, because Max would just not allow it. Max would grind out the P2s, the P1s, the P3s, and know that Lando isn't going to make the podium. He's not going to make the top step of the podium every single time. But despite all of this, McLaren are still so docile and passive in this championship. Even Zach Brown in interviews with like Nico, I love Nico Rosberg for this. Nico always asks the pertinent questions that we all want to know, even if they're really awkward. And I like him for that. That, and you know, the fact that he always mentions 2016. But in Zach's answers, he really isn't. You can tell that they haven't properly discussed team orders. And even now, discussing team orders isn't really something familiar to them. And I think it is because their drivers are on such a level pegging. Let's just take the top 4 teams, or even the top 5 teams for that matter. Aston Martin, there's clearly a number 1 driver in Fernando Alonso, even though he's older, because he is so much quicker. In Mercedes, right now you have Lewis and George, but even Kimi and George is clearly going to be the number 1 driver, the driver that gets the favorite treatment, the senior driver in the team, because Kimi is so much younger. And even though Mercedes have so much investment into Kimi, it is clear that from the outset, he is going to be playing not a second fiddle role, but if George needs him somewhere, he's going to do it until Kimi is, you know, just a beast behind the wheel, which, you know, debatable whether he's going to get there with the amount of pressure that's getting onto him, but that's a conversation for another time. Between Carlos and Charles, it's clear that Charles is the first driver, the main driver, the Ferrari prodigy. We all know this, and the team knows it, and Carlos knows it as well. And even if you wanted to go Lewis versus Charles, they're in different points in their career, so, you know, obviously if there's a championship fight, they're going to try and help Lewis, but long term, like, there isn't any confusion in the team as to what's going on. Lewis gets the respect he gets because he is the world champion, and if he needs the help, he's going to get the help. But by and large, the person who is getting the most investment in that team is going to be Charles, because he is going to be in the team 5, 6, 7 years from now when Lewis is probably retired. And as far as Red Bull goes, Sergio Perez is lucky to have a job. Sergio is lucky to have a job. Forget second driver. He's lucky to have a job. Bro, should be mopping the floors before the actual drive. I'm sorry. How did Sergio Perez keep his seat? Can somebody tell me? Can somebody email me the dirt that Sergio Perez has on Christian Horner? Because it just doesn't make any sense till this day. And then Sergio, okay, this is a small rant off, right? But Sergio obviously has been struggling a lot. And now Max is arguably, quotation, struggling. The car is just not that good right now. Struggling worse, right? He's not doing as well. And Sergio in interviews he hasn't had a smile on his face, right? But you can kind of visibly see he has that but you can kind of visibly see he has that, I told you so. I told you the car wasn't as good. You know that look, that, yeah, I bet you guys aren't saying that it's just me right now. Like, you shouldn't be this happy. It's almost like he's happy. Look, they can't fire me off of getting a P7 because Max got P6 or P5. It's like, he sees Max in P5 and he goes, whew, man, that was close. I nearly got outed there. That wasn't a good race for me, but we live to fight another day. It is crazy. It is crazy. If Perez can last this long, then Mick Schumacher should have lasted longer. That's all I'm saying. And speaking of Red Bull and Mercedes, right? Toto Wolff and Christian Horner, both bosses, you know, team principals, the longest standing team principals on the grid that we have, the 2 longest standing. I think it's very clear to see why. They're good at management skills and they know when to prioritize something. When it was push come to shove at Red Bull, we all know that Christian Horner is ruthless. We all know that Helmut Marko is ruthless. There is no getting about that. There is no getting about that. And it makes them winners. The same thing with Toto. When it was, in 2017, 2018, right? when it was Ferrari versus Mercedes. And Ferrari were not really, like, they wanted to tell Kimi, let Vettel by. But they didn't want to say it outright. Almost like they didn't want to offend Kimi or anything. And then Kimi was saying on the radio, just tell me what you want me to do. Do you want me to let him by? You know, he was telling them to be direct. Whereas Mercedes, as soon as any situation came, any situation, yep, Valtteri, it's James. You know, it really was crazy. It really was crazy. And obviously we had the whole meme things, oh, Valtteri, it's James and all that kind of stuff. But guys, this is what we need to win a championship. This is what you need. You need someone that's going to make those decisions. You need someone that's going to go, well, I don't care if you like it. That's the way we're running our team. That's what you need to win a championship, because a championship can only be won by one driver. The constructors, fine, you know, try and level that out. But as soon as it's clear that only one driver can win the championship, what good is it, especially when you're 1-2, to have the driver that could win the championship second, or even worse, have the driver that can win the championship first and allow the driver that is second to come and attack him and nearly spin him off track? It doesn't make any sense. And for that, I think I've safely concluded that the biggest obstacle at this point in time to Lando winning the championship is McLaren, because it clearly isn't Red Bull. Red Bull are on damage limitation every weekend now. Every single weekend they're on damage limitation. The only thing stopping Lando and Norris from winning is 1, his start, and 2, Piastri. That is it. Everything else, without those 2 things, Lando could potentially have won Monza, and he could have potentially have won Hungary. Maybe another race. Maybe I'm bugging. Maybe I'm bugging right now.